I paid for my brother's rehab, his rent, and his wedding. But then I walked into the delivery room, and the baby looked exactly like me. I was 13 the first time I saw my brother overdose. Not fully, not with blue lips and cold skin, but close enough. His eyes rolled back, his body stiffened. Our mom screamed like I'd never heard her scream before, and I remember standing frozen with the phone in my hand, not knowing whether to call 911 or our father. In the end, I called both. Neither picked up. That's how it started. From then on, it felt like my life split into two. The life I was born to live, and the life I had to live because of Eric. Eric was 3 years older than me, and somehow he always managed to break things: glass, bones, promises. And I was always the one left picking up the pieces. He was charismatic, magnetic. Teachers loved him when he was sober. Girls adored him. He could charm anyone out of anything, especially my mother. And me? I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the good kid. And I learned early on that good kids didn't get noticed, they got used. I remember missing my high school graduation because Eric crashed into a pole that day. He didn't even have a license anymore, but he found a way to get behind the wheel anyway. I sat in the air with him while my classmates took selfies in their gowns. He was unconscious. I held his hand. That's what family does, right? By the time I turned 20, I was already working 2 jobs. Not to save up for college. I had long given up on that dream, but to pay for his rehab. He'd finally agreed to go after his third arrest, and I couldn't say no. He swore he wanted to change. He was always swearing things. I remember the first time I visited him in rehab. He looked so small in that place. Not physically, he still had those broad shoulders and lazy grin, but emotionally, spiritually, like someone had vacuumed out everything strong inside him and left only the shell. I brought him his favorite snack: spicy Cheetos. He smiled, opened the bag, and said, "You're the only one who still believes in me, bro." And I did. God help me, I did. Over the next few years, I helped him get back on his feet. I put my life on pause again. Moved him into my apartment when he had nowhere to go. Paid his rent until he got hired at a small auto shop. Co-signed his car loan. Sat with him through his panic attacks. Drove him to every non-meeting. I told myself that if he could just stay clean, he'd find his way. And for a while, it looked like he had. That's when she came into the picture. Her name was Melissa. She had a laugh that sounded like chimes in the wind and eyes that could pin you to the wall without trying. She was smart, calm, patient, exactly the kind of woman you hope someone like Eric never ruins. They met at a support group. She was there for her sister. And somehow, Eric convinced her that he was stable enough to love. I remember the first time she came to our apartment. I was making spaghetti for both of them, and she offered to help wash the dishes after. I told her, half joking, "If you're sticking around, get used to taking care of both of us." She smiled. "I'm okay with that." I didn't realize then how literal that would become. 6 months later, they got engaged. I paid for the ring. Eric had no savings, but he'd been clean for almost a year, and I didn't want him to lose her. Melissa was the best thing to happen to him, to us. I remember the night he proposed. We had all chipped in for a small celebration at our favorite Italian place. I gave a toast. I said things like second chances and turning the page. I even got emotional. Melissa cried too. Eric looked at me and mouthed, "Thank you." I felt fulfilled. Like maybe all the sacrifices weren't in vain. Like maybe, just maybe, life was turning around. The wedding planning was rushed. Melissa was pregnant by then. Something about a broken condom and fate. I was skeptical, but happy. My brother, a father? That could anchor him. I paid for the venue deposit, the photographer, even helped them find a small rental house closer to my job so I could babysit when needed. Everything was moving fast, but I didn't mind. People asked why I was doing so much, why I gave so much. And I always said the same thing: because he's my brother. And because, deep down, I believed that love could fix broken people. That sacrifice mattered. That if you just gave enough, even the worst person could turn into someone worth loving. I was wrong. I didn't see the cracks forming right away. Maybe because I didn't want to. Melissa started canceling lunches. Eric started avoiding certain questions. My name stopped appearing in group texts, but I chalked it up to wedding stress. Then came the fights. I heard them sometimes through the wall. My apartment shared a side with theirs. I never pried. I figured all couples fought. Then came the night Melissa showed up at my door crying. It was late, maybe 11:30. Her hair was wet. Her makeup smudged. She looked like she'd been walking in the rain even though it hadn't rained in days. He pushed me, she whispered. I stood frozen. Not hard. Not like, I don't know. Just, it scared me. I wanted to say something smart. Something brotherly. But all I could do was hold her while she cried. She didn't stay long. Said she didn't want to make things worse. That she still loved him. That maybe it was the stress. The baby. The pressure. The old wounds. She left after half an hour. I didn't see her again for 3 weeks. By the time the wedding rolled around, she was glowing again. Eric looked nervous but sober. I gave them both hugs and took my place beside him at the altar. I smiled through the whole ceremony. I signed the marriage license as a witness. I even offered to drive them to the hospital the day her water broke. That's how close I was to all of it. That's how blind. The drive to the hospital was quiet. Too quiet. Eric sat in the back seat with Melissa, her contractions coming in short, sharp waves. I offered to call ahead, but Melissa said she already had. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. She looked tired, pale, almost afraid. I chalked it up to labor pains. Eric was jittery, bouncing his leg, tapping his fingers, wiping his palms on his jeans. You all right? I asked. He looked up, eyes flashing for a second before softening. Yeah. Just nervous, man. First kid. I nodded. You'll be a great dad. He didn't answer. Just looked down at his hands. We arrived at the hospital around 10:30 p.m. Melissa was wheeled into a delivery room, and I waited outside with Eric. We paced, got coffee, sat in silence. At one point, he turned to me and said, "Thanks for everything. I mean it. I couldn't have done any of this without you." I smiled, touched by the sincerity. That's what brothers are for. He nodded. Yeah, I guess. An hour later, a nurse came out and asked, "Are you the father?" Eric jumped up. Yes, I'm the father. Come with me. She's ready. He hesitated. Can my brother come too? The nurse smiled. Only one person allowed back during delivery. Eric looked at me, then at the door. You go, I said. Be there for her. He nodded and followed the nurse inside. And that was it. I sat alone for the next 3 hours, dozing in and out, sipping cold coffee, thinking about what gift to buy the baby. I'd already picked out a name plaque for the nursery. Aiden. Melissa told me that was her favorite name. I even ordered custom onesies. I was going to be the best uncle. Around 3:45 a.m., a nurse finally came out. You can go in now. She's asking for you. My heart swelled. I thought Melissa must have told her how close I was, how much I meant to the family. I smiled, stood up, and walked through those hospital doors like I was stepping into the next chapter of my life. But I wasn't stepping into a chapter. I was stepping into a trap. The room smelled like antiseptic and sweat. Melissa lay in the hospital bed, pale and exhausted. Eric was holding the baby in a blanket. He turned as I walked in, his expression unreadable. Melissa looked up at me. And then silence. It hit me like a freight train. The baby was small, pink-faced, wrapped tight in blue. But it wasn't the size or the color or the soft coos that knocked the breath out of my lungs. It was the eyes. Bright green. Just like mine. My knees went weak. I've never seen my brother with green eyes. Or Melissa. No one in her family either. She told me once, during brunch, that she always wished for green-eyed babies, but neither of us have those genes. Neither of them. But I did. I stumbled closer, heart hammering. And then I saw the dimple. High on the left cheek. Same place as mine. Same shape. I turned to Eric, my voice barely above a whisper. Can I hold him? He hesitated. He's tired. I stared. Let me hold him. He looked at Melissa. Her eyes were filled with something I couldn't describe. Not fear. Not guilt. Pity. She slowly nodded. Eric handed me the baby, but his hands shook. I cradled him close. He yawned, stretched one tiny arm up, and my stomach turned. There, on his forearm, a faint, almond-shaped birthmark. Same one as mine. Same spot. Same exact shape. My blood ran cold. I choked on my own breath. I have this same mark. Silence. I looked at Eric. He couldn't meet my eyes. Melissa began to cry. And that's when I knew. That's when every piece of the puzzle locked into place with sickening precision. The late night calls from Melissa when Eric was out. The accidental hand brushes in the kitchen. The time she cried on my shoulder and lingered a little too long. The weekend Eric went on that retreat and Melissa stayed over. Drunk, lonely. I had told myself nothing happened. I wanted to believe nothing happened. But something did. And this baby, this innocent, perfect baby, was mine. I looked at Eric again. His jaw was clenched. His fist tight. His eyes still avoiding mine. You knew, I whispered. You knew all along. He looked up slowly, face pale. It was one time. Melissa sobbed harder. One time? I hissed. One time and you just forgave her? Raised my child? Let me stand at your wedding like a damn clown? It wasn't like that, he shouted. You weren't supposed to know. We didn't even mean to. You didn't mean to what? Sleep with the woman I helped you marry? Lie to me for months? I looked at Melissa. Why didn't you tell me? Her lips trembled. I was scared. I didn't know how. I didn't want to break you. And then it was too late. I stared at both of them. The people I had given everything to. I paid for your rehab, I said, trembling. I paid for your rent. Your wedding. Your life. Eric looked away. You could have told me, I whispered. You could have let me walk away with some dignity. He finally met my eyes. I thought, if I gave this child a stable life, it wouldn't do it. I thought raising him would make it okay. You mean raising my child? I said, ice in my voice. His face twisted. You never wanted kids. And you wanted mine? Melissa reached for my hand. Please don't hate him. Don't hate the baby. I looked down at the baby in my arms. And I didn't hate him. I loved him instantly, deeply, terrifyingly. That's what made the betrayal worse. I handed him back. My arms felt hollow. I'm going to need a paternity test, I said flatly. Okay, Melissa whispered. Eric didn't argue. I walked out of that room. The hallway was bright and sterile. My feet moved on their own. Outside, the sun was just starting to rise. A soft orange cracked the sky open like the world hadn't noticed that mine had just fallen apart. I sat in my car and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. For years, I was the good brother, the silent helper, the fixer. Now I was the fool, the father, and the betrayed. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the hospital bracelet still wrapped around my wrist. It had the baby's name on it, Aiden Marcus Keller. Eric's last name. Eric's name on the birth certificate. Eric's arms that would hold him. Eric's lies that would raise him. I felt like I was drowning in someone else's life, a twisted parody of a future I never signed up for but somehow still belonged to me. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't face the world. Not yet. Not while my stomach churned with equal parts nausea and rage. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from Eric, a missed call from Melissa, a group chat ping from our mom. Congratulations. Proud of both my boys. I threw the phone across the room. It didn't break. I wish it had. The paternity test was done 3 days later. I didn't tell anyone I was going, just walked into the clinic, handed over the form, and let them swab my cheek. I paid out of pocket, no insurance, no trace. I didn't want Eric or Melissa to know. Not until I had the truth. Even though I already knew. There was no room for denial anymore. The baby was mine. In every bone, I could feel it. That strange, unexplainable pull, like my blood recognized his before my brain ever caught up. Still, I needed the paper. The evidence. The proof. It took 4 days. 4 days of silence. I didn't answer calls. I didn't check messages. I avoided our mom, my boss, even the neighbors. I was a ghost walking around my own apartment, living among the ruins of my trust. And then the envelope arrived. I stared at it for over an hour before opening it. 99.9% probability. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, the paper trembling in my hands. It wasn't a surprise, but it was a funeral. I didn't cry. Not even once. I thought I would. But the pain wasn't loud like sobbing, it was quiet, dense, like wet cement poured into my chest. I took a deep breath, stood up, and finally replied to Melissa's message. We need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow night, my place. No Eric. She replied almost instantly. I'll be there. She arrived at 8:03 p.m. the next night. Hair tied back. No makeup. Baby not with her. She looked nervous, clutching her purse like it held her spine together. I opened the door and stepped aside. Didn't say a word. She walked in slowly, like she expected to be slapped or screamed at. I gave her neither. Sit, I said. She did. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. Then silence. She broke it first. Did you get the test? I nodded and handed her the paper. She read it. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry. I stared at her. That's not enough. I know, she whispered. I leaned forward, my voice calm. Too calm. I want the truth, Melissa. The whole truth, not just what you think I can handle. She looked down, took a shaky breath. Then finally, she told me everything. It had started 2 months before their wedding. Eric was relapsing. Again. He didn't tell me. Didn't tell anyone. He was using, not heavily, but enough to turn cruel. Cold. Moody. Melissa tried to help him. He pushed her away. They argued daily. One night, he disappeared for 2 days. She thought he was dead. She came to me. Not to confess. Just to talk. I remember that night. I was watching TV, half asleep on the couch when she knocked. I remember the way she looked. Broken, scared, soaked from the rain. We sat and talked for hours. I gave her a blanket. We shared tea. Somewhere around 2 a.m., we kissed. It wasn't planned. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anything rational. It was grief. It was fear. It was comfort turning into something blurred. We slept together. Once. The next morning, she was gone. 2 weeks later, Eric showed up clean. Apologetic. Determined to marry her. He told Melissa he'd been to a friend's cabin, detoxing on his own. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. And then, she found out she was pregnant. She did the math. She knew. And she stayed silent. I didn't want to destroy you, she whispered now. And I didn't want the baby to grow up in chaos. I told myself Eric was trying. He could be a good dad. I thought, if we just buried it, maybe it could all go away. I was trembling. So you raised me. No, she cried. I was trying to protect him. And you. I thought I was protecting everyone. You were protecting your guilt, I snapped. Silence again. Then she said something that changed everything. I named him Aiden because that was the name you once told me you wanted if you ever had a son. My breath caught. She remembered. Of course she did. Melissa stood. I'll leave. I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. You did. I know. And with that, she left. I sat there for hours after. Just breathing. Thinking. Burning. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war dressed as family. Eric had robbed me of more than just trust. He had stolen my fatherhood. And I was going to take everything back. Not with fists. With precision. With patience. With cold, devastating revenge. Revenge isn't fire. It's ice. People think it's about shouting, burning, screaming. But real revenge is cold. It's quiet. It's the way you hold a cup of coffee while you plan how to destroy the two people who broke your life, using the very trust you built with them over years of sacrifice. And I had built a lot of trust. So I used it. Step 1 was easy. Pretend to forgive. I sent a message to both Eric and Melissa 3 days after our talk. I've thought about it. I don't want Aiden growing up in chaos. We need to act like adults. Let's move forward for him. Eric replied in 10 minutes. Bro, I'm so sorry. I don't deserve your grace, man. I love you. Melissa just wrote. Thank you. Simple, clean, trusting. Exactly what I wanted. Step 2. Rebuild the bridge. I started visiting, holding Aiden, offering to babysit, bringing groceries, cracking jokes with Eric like nothing had happened. It wasn't easy. Every time I saw them sitting together, pretending like their betrayal could be paved over with smiles and baby bottles, I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I played the part perfectly. Even our mom noticed. One night at dinner, she whispered, I'm proud of you for rising above it. Family's complicated. I smiled, then excused myself to the bathroom and threw up. Step 3. Leverage their guilt. I asked Melissa to let me take Aiden once a week for bonding. She hesitated at first, probably afraid the truth would erupt again. But I reminded her, gently, I'm not trying to take anything away. I just want him to know me. She agreed. Eric didn't object. I think in his mind, he believed he had won. He had the woman, the home, the child with my eyes, and his last name. He thought I'd surrendered. But I hadn't. I was just setting the stage. The final move came 8 weeks later. By then, I had built a case. Aiden's birth certificate? Eric was listed as father. But I filed a private motion with my attorney, along with the paternity results and sworn statements. I wasn't just going after the truth. I was going after paternal rights. The court date was sealed. No drama. No witnesses. Just facts. When the ruling came in, I stared at the document like it was a weapon forged in silence. Legal father, me. Eric, removed. Melissa, not contesting. She didn't want a full-blown scandal, or custody court, or press. I made sure she understood exactly what would surface if she pushed. And then, I executed the finale. It was Aiden's first birthday. Melissa and Eric threw a backyard party. Balloons. Cupcakes. Family. Friends. Everyone smiling. Even our mother. She gave a toast about second chances and family healing. I stayed quiet, holding Aiden. Waiting. After cake, I stood up, cleared my throat, and said, I have a small announcement. Just something I want to share. Everyone turned. Eric smiled, clueless. Melissa looked wary. I pulled out a slim envelope. My attorney had advised against it, but I needed them to hear it from me. I want to thank everyone for being here, I said calmly. Especially Eric and Melissa, for letting me be such a big part of Aiden's life. Eric beamed. Melissa's smile twitched. But more than that, I continued. I want to thank you all for witnessing this moment when I tell the truth, finally. I opened the envelope and read aloud. As per the county family court ruling, dated date, I, not Eric Keller, am the biological and legal father of Aiden Marcus Keller. Effective immediately, I have been granted full parental rights and am pursuing primary custody. Silence. A fork clattered. Melissa gasped. Eric stood up. What the hell is this? Legal notice, I said. Want a copy? You can't do this, he shouted. He's my son. No, I said, pulling out the paternity results. He's mine. You just raised him, on borrowed time. Melissa looked like she might faint. I kept going. I've already met with a judge. Melissa, if you cooperate, we can work out visitation. But Eric, your rights are gone. You signed everything away when you lied and let your name go on that certificate. He lunged at me. I was ready. I stepped back. One more thing. This party? It's being recorded. I pointed to a small nanny cam I had mounted earlier, disguised in a stuffed animal near the table. Try something, I warned. Please. Eric froze. Melissa covered her mouth, sobbing. Guess murmured. My mom whispered, "Oh my God." And I looked around at all the people who once thought I was just the quiet, dependable brother. Now they saw the truth. I wasn't weak. I was patient. I was calculated. And I had won. Later that night, I took Aiden home with me. He fell asleep in the car, his tiny fist wrapped around my finger. I looked at him, heart full. He didn't know what had happened. He didn't know the cost of the lies that brought him into the world. He just knew I was there. And I would be. Forever. Aiden adjusted to my home faster than I expected. At first, he cried a lot, especially at night. Maybe he felt the shift, the quiet difference of walls he didn't recognize, the absence of the woman who had sung him to sleep since he was born. I stayed up with him, every single time, holding him, rocking him gently in the armchair I bought the day after the custody ruling. I told him stories, not fairy tales, truths, about sacrifice, about love, about betrayal that wears the face of family, and about strength, the kind that doesn't shout or break things, but endures in silence. And slowly, he stopped crying. He began to smile when I walked in. He started saying, "Dada," when I picked him up. And that word, that single word, made every ounce of pain I carried worth it. Eric never recovered. After the birthday party reveal, he disappeared from our lives. Our mom told me he tried to check into another rehab center, but they turned him away because he was high during the intake. I heard he'd been couch surfing, that his old boss wouldn't hire him back. He tried texting me once. Just a single message. "You took everything." I never replied, because it wasn't true. I didn't take anything. He gave it away. Melissa, on the other hand, became a ghost with a heartbeat. She agreed to limited visitation, once a month, supervised. She never fought me in court, never tried to reclaim him. Her eyes looked dead during those early visits, hollow, like she'd finally realized some betrayals don't just hurt, they cost everything. And yet, a part of me still pitied her. I shouldn't have, but I did. Then came the final twist, the one I never saw coming. It started with a knock on my door. A woman stood outside, petite, early 40s, sharp blue eyes, clipboard in hand. She introduced herself as a caseworker from the Department of Child Services. I froze. "Is there a problem?" I asked. She glanced at her papers. "We received an anonymous tip about potential paternity fraud, followed by custodial manipulation. I'd like to ask you a few questions." My heart plummeted. "What kind of tip?" I'm not at liberty to say, but according to our records, there is some question over whether the paternity test was legitimate. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She handed me a photocopy of a report. And there it was, in black and white. A formal complaint with attached evidence claiming my paternity test had been falsified. That I'd used manipulated results to strip parental rights from another man. That I'd used my financial power to pressure Melissa into silence. My chest tightened. This is ridiculous. I have the court-approved results. Melissa never contested them. The caseworker nodded. That's what makes it suspicious, No contest. No follow-up. Sudden custody switch. It fits a pattern we've seen in certain fabricated paternity claims. I stood in stunned silence. She continued, "You'll be receiving a formal letter. In the meantime, I need to take a sample from Aiden, just to verify everything." I didn't argue. I just nodded and prayed. It took 2 weeks. 2 agonizing weeks. I held Aiden every night like he'd vanish in his sleep. I avoided Melissa's calls. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. And then the results came. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. And there it was. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I stared at the number. Read it again. And again. My body went numb. The baby wasn't mine. He never was. I couldn't breathe. I called the lab. They confirmed everything. Aiden wasn't biologically related to me at all. The original paternity test, the one I submitted to the court, had been forged. I remembered the website I'd used. A cheap online service that didn't even verify ID. I'd been in a rush. I hadn't thought it mattered because the resemblance was so strong, so obvious. I never questioned it. Never imagined someone would fake that. But someone had. And there was only one person who would gain from it. Melissa. I showed up at her apartment the next day. She looked thinner. Tired. "Hey," she said nervously, stepping aside to let me in. I didn't sit. I pulled out the new test results. Her face went pale the second she saw the header. "I thought he was mine," I said, my voice dead calm. "But he isn't. So tell me, what the hell did you do?" She closed her eyes. And then she said it. "I was pregnant before you and I. Before anything ever happened. I just didn't know. I thought maybe it was yours." When the test came back, I was terrified. I thought I was going to lose everything. So, I paid someone to switch the sample. My heart cracked like a frozen lake. "You used me," I whispered. "I didn't mean to," she said quickly. "At first, I just wanted to protect Eric. Then you started stepping in. You were so good with Aiden. Better than Eric ever was. And I thought, if you believed he was yours, maybe you'd give him the life he deserved." I stepped back like she had slapped me. "You took my grief, my betrayal, my rage, and turned it into a lie." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "Yes, you did," I said coldly. "And you did it twice." The court case was swift. Once the forgery was exposed, custody was revoked immediately. I had no claim. No rights. No child. In less than 3 days, Aiden was gone. The house is quiet now. His toys are still in the corner. His onesies folded in a drawer I can't bring myself to open. I don't hear laughter anymore. Just silence. Cold and permanent. I still see him sometimes in the grocery store with Melissa in the park near my work. She doesn't wave. I don't either. We are strangers now, bound by a ghost. My brother? I haven't seen him in months. Rumor is, he's living out of his car. I don't care anymore. Or maybe I cared too much. Maybe that's what makes this the cruelest ending. Not the betrayal. Not the revenge. But the fact that I built my entire world around a child who was never mine. And no one ever apologized. Not really. Because in the end, no one had to pay. Except me.